Alright everyone, and welcome to another recap. So in this video we'll have a look at the game between Grigori Operin and Hikaru Nakamura from the third round of the FIDE Grand Prix in Berlin. This is the third and final leg of the Grand Prix. Hikaru needs a good result to qualify to the candidate tournament. Probably he needs to win the group because Lavon is also on a high score, and letting Lavon win the group would not be ideal. Anyway, so Hikaru started off with a loss against Lavon. They made a draw yesterday against Yesipenko, so he was behind in the standings. And playing against the lowest seed in the group, he kind of needed a win. So Operin opened up with 1d4 and Hikaru played knight f6. Against Lavon, he played the queen's gambit accepted, but they kind of backfired after they went into this very sharp variation where Lavon had some preparation. Right? Hikaru sacrificed the exchange, but it all was very, very sharp, and fortunately for Hikaru, he did not figure out the right continuation, and he lost. So this is what happened in the first game, but in this game he switches it up. He plays knight f6, and after c4 he goes for the move g6. Now, traditionally he has always been a Nimzo player. This is more solid, but once again, Grigori, he's very solid, and against someone like the Catalan, which is Operin's main weapon, it's very difficult to create any winning chances with black. So Hikaru goes for g6, which shows that he's in more of a combative mood. Combative, yeah. Knight is c3, bishop g7. Now, I would like to add that Grigori usually goes for the fianchetto. I don't know exactly what Hikaru had prepared here. I doubt that he would go for the symmetrical line, because that can get very dry. So perhaps more of a King-Zany line with d6, maybe knight c6, knight bd7 and e5, or knight c6 and a6. That's also playable. But once again, Grigori played knight c3, bishop g7, e4. This is the main line against the King's Indian. Thanks, Brainiac, for the raid. D6 by Hikaru. And here there's a lot of things white can do. Traditionally, the main line has always been knight f3 and bishop to e2. There's also stuff like h3 in this position. Bishop e2 is also a move, castles. And here bishop e3 is, I think, the move Hikaru played against Grishuk. I'm not 100% sure. But in this game, Grigori goes for the move h4. Very straightforward. White just wants to go h5. Create pressure on black's king side. So you can go h5, but I feel like this inclusion should favor white. So Hikaru goes for the move c5, putting pressure on the center. Greg plays d5, e6, h5, takes, and rook to e8. Now, and Greg's next move comes as a bit of a surprise. You would think like he pushes this pawn all the way up to try to open up the h-file, but he plays the move h6. Because Hikaru goes bishop h8 and bishop g5. And you think like, okay, what does he really achieve with this pawn on h6, right? But this pawn over here is always going to be super annoying. Black can never give up this bishop because he will probably get checkmated on the dark squares. But with that being said, Hikaru goes queen b6, hitting the pawn on b2, and Greg plays b3. Now here there are some options, maybe knight a6 or bishop f5, but Hikaru goes for knight e4, takes, and king f1. Now once again, you cannot give up this bishop even for the rook, because white's going to take, threatens checkmate, and that already looks very difficult to stop. You'd have to play something like rook d4, but then after knight f3, you cannot move the rook, and this position might just be lost. So here there was still a game between Bacro and Gawain Jones, in which Jones played the move rook to e8. It all seems very, very sharp. Perhaps rook e8 is a little bit better. Black keeps his options open. Like this, you want to put the bishop here, or bishop g4, in the case white goes knight f3. And also, where is he going to develop the knight, right? Is he going to go to a6 or to d7? But Hikaru goes knight a6. And from here on out, the game becomes extremely complicated. So here, Greg plays the move bishop to d3, hitting the rook. And now Hikaru could play something like rook d4, which looks very tricky, because you hit the bishop. You cannot play here, because black's going to take. And at the end of it all, this rook is hanging, and black wins a piece. But what white is going to do is white is going to go queen to e2. And with this move, white is all of a sudden threatening a checkmate. And it's not easy. Like, let's say you go here, then rook e1 from white. And you can play knight b4 here, which is very similar to the game. If white takes on g6, we can just take. And after queen e7, apparently after bishop f5, it's fine, because white doesn't have g4. We'll get back to that later. But the problem is, after knight b4, white just brings the bishop back. And after knight takes d5, white goes knight f3. Hitting the rook. The rook cannot go anywhere, and black seems to be in some trouble. But we'll keep these lines in mind for later. So instead of all that, Hikaru goes for bishop g4, hitting the queen. White plays f3. And here black looks to be in trouble, right? This rook is under attack, this bishop is under attack. But Hikaru plays the move rook to d4. Now, if you take on g4 here, black is doing fine because black goes knight to b4, hitting the bishop. And black is a pretty good game here, I would say. But Greg goes for the move queen to e2. Alright, so he's stepping out of this line. This bishop is still under attack. Now you might think like, wait, can't we just take this bishop over here? Because if white takes, then we can take here and we're doing fine, right? But white goes rook to e1, making sure this bishop is not under attack, and threatens this. This bishop is under attack, this rook is under attack. Black simply cannot defend everything. Right, if we go here, then queen e8, it's all over. So Hikaru goes bishop back, okay? And now rook e1 from Greg. So he's just making sure this rook is not under attack, or wait, like this. And he's preparing his own sort of idea. So Hikaru goes knight to b4, hitting the bishop. Now if white goes bishop to b1, here we take on d5. Now there's no knight to f3, and if you take this knight, there's bishop b5, and black wins the game. Because the queen is under attack, you cannot move the queen because it's pinned to the king. So that was Hikaru's idea, but here Greg unleashed the amazing bishop takes g6. Now, and here black's in trouble. If you take this bishop with the h-pawn, white will give a check. If you go king here, there's bishop h6, you have to block like this, and h8, queen is checkmate. Now, if you go king up, here white goes queen e7, and there's simply no defense to bishop f6 checkmate, or bishop h6, which will also lead to checkmate. So you cannot take with the h-pawn. Now what happens if you take with the f-pawn? If you take with the f-pawn, white goes queen e7 and hits this bishop. Now if this bishop gets lost, then white will go queen e6 and this king over here will simply get checkmated. So what can black do? You can go bishop f5, and we looked at this if the pawn was on f2, but here white goes g4. And your bishop is under attack, you can give a check, but white just simply steps out of it, and there's simply no defense to queen e6, and all of a sudden here we see white's pawn on h6 is so super annoying. So bishop f5 is also an option. Well, what happens then if we defend the bishop? Like, let's say we go queen c7, right? I mean, we defend the bishop, everything is looking good. Well, here white plays rook to e6. Wait, what the frick? Now, if you take this rook, there's queen takes c7. You're lost. There's nothing you can do. And what happens if you leave this rook hanging with a move like rook to e8? Well, here white goes rook takes g6 check, takes, and pawn h7 checkmate. So after rook e6, there's simply no defense. You can give a check. Oh, wait. You can give a check, but it doesn't do anything. White goes here. This is still a threat. You're still completely lost. So this is not going to work. And yeah, there's simply nothing white can do. You can try rook takes d5, but here white has two very good options. White can take this bishop over here, and black amazingly is not lost, because after rook e5 takes, the queen is covering this square and the knight is covering this square, but this position still looks very bad. But white is even better. Here, white can still throw in rook e6, threaten checkmate. If you take, white takes, the king moves over, you give a check, king goes here, and apparently like check here and bishop takes, there's no defense to bishop g7 checkmate. So what are you gonna do? You might think like, okay, wait, but I can take this bishop over here. I defend this pawn, and what are you gonna do? But here white has rook f6. Queen f7 is the threat, and if you take, white recaptures, and you simply have no defense against queen g7 checkmate. So very, very weird stuff. We were trying to figure out what Hikaru's best option would be here, but it simply seems that black is lost. So instead of all that, Hikaru played knight takes d5, and here we thought he was simply going to lose the game, because white can play bishop f5, hitting this bishop. We know that the bishop cannot move because of queen e8 checkmate. The bishop is covering that square. And what are you going to do, right? This knight is also under attack. Like if you go queen c7, white can just trade. Take here, you're just down a full piece, and white still has a huge attack. But here Greg sort of lost a threat. He took an h7, and now Hikaru recaptured. And all of a sudden it's not that clear. Once again, you cannot take the knight. Bishop e5 and black wins the game. So instead of that, Greg gives this check along this diagonal. Now we know that we cannot step back because this check over here, and this is not what we want. White just gets a huge attack. It's not checkmate right away, but you know with the king on f6, things are not going to work out. So Hikaru played f5, now Greg took the knight, and now rook e7 is a major threat. You cannot play rook to e8, because here white's going to take, you recapture, and the f5 pawn is hanging, and this leads to a checkmating attack. So Hikaru played bishop f5 to block the e-file, and here things start to get very tricky. Like, white can play f4 trying to dislodge the bishop, but we give a check here, and I don't know, things are very tricky. So Greg played knight e2, hitting the rook on d4, and Hikaru played queen a6, pinning the knight on e2. King f2 was played, once again introducing the threat into the position, and Hikaru played queen at d3. So he's offering the queen trade, and if you take this rook over here, we take here with check, the king has to move, we take the queen, and all of a sudden black is completely winning. So white cannot do that. So instead queen c1 would have probably been the best move, but still here the position is very tricky. Black can play bishop b5 for example, and if you take this rook now we take with a check, and if you go queen e3 we go f4. The queen is under attack, and guess what, if you take, you're practically checkmated. Due to the two bishops, this pawn is also holding these squares, so you have to go rook e3, but here black just wins the game. So it's all very, very tricky. So instead of that, Greg decided just to trade the queens. And here knight f4 seemed to be the best move, hitting the rook. Now the problem for black is that you cannot play rook to d4 due to knight e6, hitting the rook. And if you take here, all of a sudden you're forked. And you cannot go rook d2 because that square is covered. So instead of that, Greg played rook to d1, offering the rook trade. But here Hikaru found the correct rook takes d1 and a5. Now he's getting a lot of counterplay on the queen side. If a4 comes, then this rook is going to come into the game, and all of a sudden black can also get chances here. So Greg played rook d3, a4. Now here perhaps he should have played the move f4, hitting the bishop, and if the bishop h8 here, rook e3, threatening rook e7, after which black is forced to go rook e8, and white can trade and go like rook bishop e7. And I don't know, black still has to be careful here about holding the draw, but he should probably make it after say takes and bishop f7. I mean, this is hanging, if we take here then this is hanging. But instead of that, Greg played rook to e3. So now he's threatening f4, hit the bishop and go rook to e7. But here Hikaru took and rook a2. Now if you go f4 here, then black goes bishop d4. Congratulations, your rook is pinned. You cannot take as your knight is pinned as well. And black wins the game, so you cannot do that. So instead of that, Greg played king to g1. King f1 is also a move, but this allows black to go, let's say, bishop b5 and f4, then bishop d4. And here things could get out of control. Like rook e7, black can start playing for the win with something like king g6. And he doesn't necessarily have to take the repetition. But Greg played king to g1, and now f4 is a major threat. Bishop e5 is possible, but white goes f4. And we can take, and this is probably just a draw, but nothing more, right? And black still needs to be accurate about making the draw. Because, okay, if you move the bishop now the knight is not pinned. And after, say, check, and knight g3, white gets a huge attack. Rook e6 is a threat, followed by knight takes f5. So you don't want to go into this. So instead of all this, Hikaru decided to give a check, king f2, rook a2, and after king g1, a draw was agreed. So very up and down game. A big save for Hikaru because it looked like he was just completely lost on move 20, right? If white had played bishop 5 here, but as it stands, he saves the game. Lovan and Yesipenko also drew their games, so right now Lovan is leading the group with 2 points. Then we have Yesipenko and Oparin with 1.5, and then in last place Hikaru. He will probably need to win tomorrow's game against Lovan Aronian with the white pieces to give himself a chance of winning the group. So stay tuned for that. But with all that being said and done, I hope you all enjoyed the game analysis. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. I do plan on doing more of these. Also, make sure to follow me on my twitch.tv/GMBach. I was doing coverage today. Maybe we'll do coverage again tomorrow. So hope to see all of you guys there. And I look forward to seeing y'all in the next video.